I stared at my phone screen at 11:37 p.m., reading the text message for the third time, trying to make sense of the words. "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family. Don't come to any gatherings." My mother had sent it. Below her message, I could see that my younger sister Sarah had liked it. 5 years of automatic payments, of quietly covering their mortgage, tuition, insurance, car payments, and my grandmother's care. 5 years of being the invisible foundation while they built their lives on top of me. I typed back with shaking hands. "Thanks for confirming. I'll cancel all the auto payments." By 12:48 a.m., the panic began on the other end. I sat on my couch in the dark apartment, the glow from my phone illuminating my face as notification after notification lit up the screen. My mother was calling. The ringtone cut through the silence once, twice, 3 times. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father's name appeared with a text. "Let's talk about this." Then Sarah, suddenly frantic. Wait. Then my brother Jake. "Dude, what are you doing?" I worked as a senior financial analyst for a mid-sized investment firm in downtown Chicago. I made $137,000 a year, which was good money for a 28-year-old. But after taxes, rent in a decent neighborhood, student loans, and basic living expenses, I should have been saving maybe $1,500 a month. Instead, I had almost nothing in savings. Because for 5 years, since I was 23 and got my first real job, I had been supporting my entire family. Nobody asked me to do it at first. It started small. My parents refinanced their house in the suburbs when I was in college, pulled out equity for renovations they never completed, and suddenly couldn't make the new payment, $2,000 a month. My father had been laid off from his manufacturing job, and my mother worked part-time at a grocery store. I was making decent money in my first analyst position. I offered to help temporarily. Temporary became permanent. They never asked me to stop, so I never did. Then my grandmother needed assisted living. Dementia was creeping in, and she couldn't live alone anymore. The facility cost $1,800 a month. My parents said they couldn't afford it. I set up another automatic payment. My grandmother was the only person in my family who had ever made me feel truly loved. I would have done anything for her. Then Jake, 3 years younger than me, wanted to go to a state university for business. My parents had no college savings. I covered his tuition, $12,000 a year, paid in installments, $400 a month during the school year. Jake never thanked me. He barely acknowledged it. My parents told everyone they were paying for his education. Then Sarah, the baby of the family at 24, bought a car she couldn't afford, a brand new SUV, fully loaded, because her husband Craig convinced her she deserved it. Payment, $550 a month. When she fell behind, I got a tearful call from my mother. I added it to my automatic payments. Then the family health insurance. My father's layoff meant they lost coverage. I added them all to my company's plan as dependents, claiming they lived with me. Extra $450 a month from my paycheck. Total monthly output, $4,800, nearly half my take-home pay. And for 5 years, not one thank you, not one acknowledgement. I was the ghost in the machine, the invisible provider. Meanwhile, Jake was the golden child, praised for his ambition despite doing nothing. Sarah was the precious baby, doted on despite her irresponsibility. And I was just Abel, the responsible one, expected to handle things. 3 months ago, everything changed. Sarah's husband Craig approached me at a family barbecue. He pulled me aside, acting friendly, and pitched me an investment opportunity. "Cryptocurrency," he said. "A sure thing. Ground floor." He needed $50,000 and promised to triple my money in 6 months. I'm a financial analyst. I did my research that night. The cryptocurrency he mentioned was essentially a pyramid scheme already flagged by the SEC. I called him the next day and said no, explaining exactly why it was a scam. He got defensive, then angry, accusing me of thinking I was smarter than everyone else. Sarah got involved, crying about how I didn't support their dreams. My parents took their side, saying I should help family even if I had doubts. I stood my ground. The tension grew. Family dinners became uncomfortable. Group texts went quiet when I joined. I felt the shift but didn't understand the depth of it until tonight. My phone buzzed again. My mother, calling for the 5th time. I answered. "Abel, you can't just stop everything." Her voice was high-pitched, frantic. "You texted me that I'm not part of the family anymore," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "If I'm not family, I'm not responsible for family expenses." "We didn't mean it like that." She was backpedaling, talking fast. "We were just upset. You know how things have been tense. We thought some space might be good, so explain to me what you meant." I waited. Silence stretched between us. "Because it seems pretty clear. You agreed as a family to remove me." Sarah liked the message. "So, I'm doing what you asked. I'm removing myself completely. Abel, please. Your father's mortgage payment is due tomorrow. The bank already sent a late notice last month. If we miss this one, they start foreclosure proceedings." "That sounds like a family problem," I said. "And I'm no longer family. You made that clear." She started crying. The kind of manipulative tears I had heard my entire life, whenever she wanted something. "How can you be so cruel? After everything we've done for you?" That statement hit me like cold water. Everything they had done for me, raising me, wasn't a favor. It was their basic parental obligation. And for the last 5 years, I had paid them back 100 times over. "I need to go," I said. "Don't call me again tonight." I hung up and opened my banking app. One by one, I went through and canceled every automatic payment. The mortgage, the assisted living facility, the tuition, the car payment, the insurance premium. Each cancellation felt like removing a weight from my chest. Within 10 minutes, my father called. I answered. "We need to talk about this reasonably," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "You can't just abandon your responsibilities." "My responsibilities?" I felt something cold settle in my chest. I'm 28 years old. My responsibility is to myself. For 5 years, I've paid for your lives. Not once did any of you thank me. Not once did you acknowledge it. You told everyone else that you were paying for everything. I was invisible except when you needed money. We raised you. We fed you. We clothed you. You owe us." His voice was rising now, the control slipping. "I owed you nothing beyond basic human decency, which I gave you for free along with nearly $300,000 over 5 years. But apparently, that wasn't enough. So we're done. If I'm not part of the family, then my bank account isn't either. You're going to regret this, Abel. When you need us, we won't be there." I almost laughed. "When have you ever been there for me? Name one time in the last 5 years when you did something for me, without expecting something in return." Silence. Then he hung up. I sat in the dark, my hands shaking, adrenaline coursing through me. My phone kept buzzing with messages, but I put it on silent and set it face down on the coffee table. I had just blown up my entire family in less than an hour. And the strangest thing was, beneath the fear and hurt, I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. I felt light. I woke up the next morning to 73 text messages and 14 missed calls. My phone had been buzzing all night despite being on silent, the vibrations persistent even in sleep. I made coffee and sat at my small kitchen table, finally opening the message threads. The mortgage payment had been due yesterday. I had always paid it on the last day of the month, timed perfectly. Without my payment, the bank's automated system had immediately sent a notice to my parents. They were already 1 month behind from before, when I had covered that late payment out of pocket. Missing this second month meant the bank was initiating foreclosure proceedings. They had 30 days to bring the account current or lose the house. My grandmother's assisted living facility had called my parents at 7 in the morning. The payment was 4 days overdue. Facility policy stated that 10 days past due resulted in immediate eviction. My grandmother would need to be removed. My parents had no idea where they would put her. Their house was too small, and neither of them was equipped to handle her increasing care needs. My brother Jake's tuition payment had bounced. The university's automated system suspended his access to classes and campus facilities immediately. He was in his final semester, 8 weeks from graduation. Without reinstatement, he couldn't complete his degree. The bursar's office told him he needed to pay the full semester amount, plus a $500 reinstatement fee, plus late charges. Total, $6,700. Due within 2 weeks or he would be fully withdrawn. The health insurance lapse was immediate. My father had gone to refill his heart medication that morning and discovered at the pharmacy counter that his insurance was terminated. The prescription cost $340 out of pocket. He had left without it. My sister's car had been repossessed at 6:30 in the morning from her driveway. The finance company's records showed 3 months of missed payments, all of which I had actually been covering. But my cancellation triggered an immediate flag in their system. Someone had come with a tow truck while she was still asleep. She woke up to an empty driveway and a note on her door. The group chat I wasn't part of had been accidentally screenshot by Jake and sent to me, probably meant for someone else. I could see the whole conversation. Sarah suggesting they all apologize and beg me to help just one more time. Craig insisting they should threaten legal action, though none of them could articulate for what. Jake saying I owed them for raising me. My mother having a breakdown in text form, saying this was all falling apart. How could this happen? My father angry, blaming everyone, saying I was holding the family hostage and that he didn't raise a son who would do this. Not once in the entire thread did anyone acknowledge their own role. Not once did anyone admit that maybe, just maybe, disowning me, and then expecting continued financial support was contradictory. They were the victims in their narrative, and I was the villain. My phone rang. Aunt Linda. My mother's younger sister, the only member of the extended family I actually liked. I answered. Abel, honey, what on earth is happening? Your mother called me crying this morning, barely making sense. I explained everything. The 5 years of payments. The disownment text. My decision to stop. Linda listened without interrupting, which was more than my parents had ever done. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then, Abel, I had no idea. I thought your parents were paying for all of that. Your mother has been telling everyone how hard they're working to support the family, how they're paying for Jake's college, how they're taking care of your grandmother. She made it sound like they were struggling, but managing. Something cold settled in my stomach. She told people they were paying. At every family gathering, she complained about the cost, about how hard it was, but she always framed it as them doing it. Your father would agree. Talk about making sacrifices. I thought you were just doing well for yourself and living your own life. They had been taking credit for my generosity. For 5 years, they had been accepting praise from extended family, for sacrifices they never made, for financial support they never provided. They had built their reputation on my invisible labor. I'm so sorry, Abel. This is wrong. What they did is wrong. Linda's voice was firm. Do you need anything? Are you okay? I'm okay, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. I just need some space from all of them. I understand. But honey, you should know that this is going to get worse before it gets better. Your parents are panicking, and when they panic, they lash out. Be careful. She was right. At 11:30 that morning, my parents showed up at my workplace. I was in a meeting with my team, reviewing quarterly projections, when our receptionist paged me. Abel, there are 2 people in the lobby claiming to be your parents. They say it's a family emergency. My stomach dropped. I excused myself and went down to the lobby. My mother and father stood near the security desk, both looking haggard. My mother's eyes were red and swollen. My father's face was tight with barely controlled anger. We need to talk, my father said loudly enough that several people in the lobby turned to look. Right now. This is my workplace, I said quietly. You can't be here. Our house is being foreclosed on." My mother's voice was shrill, carrying across the marble lobby. "Your grandmother is being evicted. Your brother can't finish college. And you won't even talk to us." People were staring now. I could feel my face burning. "Let's go outside." "No." My father stepped closer. "You're going to fix this right now. You're going to restore those payments and stop this nonsense." "I'm not doing anything," I said, keeping my voice level despite my racing heart. "You disowned me. You made your choice. These are the consequences. You can't do this to us." My mother was crying now, loud theatrical sobs. "We're your family. We raised you. You owe us." "I owe you nothing." My voice was harder than I intended. "You need to leave, or I'll call security." My father grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "You'll regret this, Abel. You hear me? You'll regret doing this to your family." "Sir, I need you to let go of him." The security guard had moved closer, his hand near his radio. My father held on for another second, his eyes locked on mine, before releasing me. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is." I stepped back. "Don't come here again. Don't call me. Don't text me. We're done." Security escorted them out while half the lobby watched. I stood there, shaking, humiliated, exposed. When I turned around, my boss was standing near the elevator, having witnessed the entire scene. "My office," he said quietly. "Now." I followed him up, certain I was about to be fired for bringing family drama to work. Instead, when we got to his office and he closed the door, he said, "Sit down and tell me what's going on." So I did. I explained everything, my voice steady despite wanting to break down. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "That's financial abuse, Abel. What they've been doing to you is textbook exploitation." He paused. "Take the rest of the day off. Go home. Decompress. And if they show up here again, we'll handle it legally. You're a valued employee, and I won't have you harassed at work." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The kindness, after years of being taken for granted, almost undid me completely. I went home and sat in my apartment, blinds closed, trying to process everything. My phone kept buzzing, but I ignored it. Around 4 in the afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Aunt Linda. I opened the door. She held up a bag from my favorite sandwich shop. "Figured you hadn't eaten. Can I come in?" We sat at my kitchen table, and she let me talk. Really talk. About everything I had been holding in for years. About feeling invisible. About the guilt. About the anger I had been suppressing because good sons don't get angry at their families. About the loneliness of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who fixes everything while getting no recognition. "You did the right thing," Linda said firmly when I finished. "What they're doing now, showing up at your work, that's escalation. It's going to get worse. You need to protect yourself." "They're my family," I said weakly. "Family doesn't exploit you, Abel. Family doesn't disown you and then demand money. What they're doing isn't love. It's manipulation." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're blood." After she left, I sat in the growing darkness and let myself cry for the first time in 5 years. Not for them, but for myself. For the younger version of me who thought if he just gave enough, tried hard enough, sacrificed enough, they would finally see him. Finally love him the way he needed to be loved. That version of me had been wrong, and it was time to let him go. 2 days later, I discovered that my family had decided if they couldn't manipulate me privately, they would destroy me publicly. I was scrolling through social media during my lunch break when I saw it. Sarah had posted a long, emotional statement on her page. The post was visible to everyone: mutual friends, extended family, acquaintances, hundreds of people. The engagement was already substantial, dozens of comments and shares in just a few hours. It breaks my heart to share this, but I need to be honest about what our family is going through. My older brother, who has been blessed with financial success, has completely abandoned us in our time of greatest need. Our parents are facing foreclosure. Our grandmother is being evicted from her care facility. My younger brother can't finish his college degree. All because one person decided his money is more important than his family. I don't understand how someone can be so cold. We raised him with love, supported him through everything, and this is how he repays us. If you're reading this and you have a brother or sister, hug them tight. Not everyone is lucky enough to have siblings who actually care. The post had a photo attached, an old picture from a family gathering 5 years ago. All of us smiling around a dinner table, looking happy. The caption on the photo, "Before everything changed," the comments were brutal. People I had known since high school, distant cousins, family friends, all expressing sympathy for Sarah and disappointment in me. How could he do that to his own family? Money changes people. I always knew he thought he was better than everyone. Praying for your family during this difficult time. Nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew about the disownment text, about 5 years of silent financial support, about the credit I never received. Sarah had crafted a perfect narrative. The struggling, loving family, abandoned by the selfish, wealthy son. My phone started ringing with calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years, some offering sympathy to my family, others calling to tell me I should be ashamed. I stopped answering. Then the emails started. My mother sent a long, detailed message with the subject line, "A mother's plea." In it, she outlined every expense she claimed to have incurred raising me. Diapers, formula, clothes, school supplies, sports fees, food, housing, utilities. She estimated, with dubious math, that she had spent at least $200,000 on me from birth to age 18. Her conclusion: I owed the family repayment, and my current actions were not only cruel but essentially theft of services rendered. The email was CC'd to Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, and several other family members. She was trying to build a case, to rally support. Some of the replies were sympathetic to her. Others, thankfully, were more skeptical. Jake called me, screaming into the phone before I could even say hello. "You ruined my life. I can't finish school now. I can't get my degree. How am I supposed to get a job? How am I supposed to have a future? This is all your fault." "You're 25 years old," I said, my voice tired. "You've had 4.5 years to figure out how to pay for school yourself. I was never obligated to cover it. You were. You're my brother. That's what family does. Family doesn't disown each other and then demand money, Jake. We didn't disown you. Mom was just upset. You're taking it too seriously." "Sarah liked the message," I said. "You all agreed. That's what the text said. And you know what? I'm done arguing about this. Figure out your own life." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking again, adrenaline and anger mixing. Craig sent me a series of messages that afternoon, each one more threatening than the last. He claimed they were consulting lawyers. He used terms like elder financial abuse and abandonment, neither of which applied to my situation, but both of which sounded scary. He said I would be hearing from their attorney soon. He implied that I could face criminal charges. I knew it was bluster, empty threats from a desperate man, but it still scared me. I had never been threatened with legal action before. I didn't know what they could actually do, if anything. That evening, I drove to visit Aunt Linda. She had called earlier and asked me to come by. When I arrived, Uncle Robert was there too. He was a lawyer, practicing family law in a firm downtown. Linda had told him everything. "Show me the texts," Robert said, after we sat down in Linda's living room. I pulled them up on my phone. The disownment message from my mother, Sarah's like. My response about canceling payments. The subsequent panic. Robert read through everything carefully, then nodded. "First, there's no legal basis for anything they're threatening. You're an adult. They're adults. You have no legal obligation to support them financially. None. The elder financial abuse angle is nonsense. That applies when someone is stealing from, or exploiting elderly people. Not when someone stops giving them free money. What about the stuff Craig was saying about abandonment? Also nonsense. Abandonment laws apply to minor children or, in some states, to spouses during divorce proceedings. Not to adult children ceasing to voluntarily support their adult parents. Robert set my phone down. Abel, they're scrambling. They're making threats they can't back up because they're desperate. But you should document everything. Keep every text, every email, every voicemail. If this escalates, you'll want a record. Escaladas how? I don't know, Robert admitted. But your aunt told me about them showing up at your work. That's concerning. That's harassment. If it continues, you might need to pursue a restraining order. The words restraining order hit me hard. Against my own family. This was really happening. Linda reached over and squeezed my hand. There's something else you should know. I've been talking to other family members, setting the record straight, showing them the real story. Not everyone believes Sarah's post. A lot of people are starting to ask questions. That's good, Robert said, because the court of public opinion matters. If they're going to try to destroy your reputation, you need allies who know the truth. I left Linda's house feeling slightly better, but still deeply anxious. When I got home, I found out exactly how right Robert had been about escalation. My grandmother had called me. She never called, usually communicated through my mother. I called her back immediately. Abel, honey, I need to talk to you about something important. Her voice was shaky, but her mind was clear tonight. I just found out what happened, what your parents told everyone, and I need to tell you something that I just discovered. What is it, Grandma? Your parents have been taking money from me, from my Social Security checks, for years. My blood went cold. What? They told me they were managing my finances, keeping the money safe, in a savings account for me. I trusted them. But Abel, I asked to see the account today. I wanted to know if I had enough to help pay for the care facility myself. They've been taking $600 a month from my checks, for 3 years. And it's gone. All of it. There's nothing in the account. They spent it. I did the math quickly. $600 a month, for 3 years. $21,600. Stolen from my grandmother. There's more, she said, her voice breaking now. They took out a credit card in my name. I found the statements in their house. It's maxed out. $12,000. The charges are for things they bought. Restaurants, shopping, a vacation I didn't go on. Abel, they've been stealing from me. I felt sick. Grandma, I'm coming to get you right now. No, it's too late tonight. But tomorrow, can you come visit? I need help figuring this out. I don't want to destroy the family, but I also can't let this go. This is wrong. It's more than wrong, Grandma. It's illegal. It's financial elder abuse. I know, she whispered. I know. We made plans for me to visit the next day. After I hung up, I sat on my couch, my head in my hands. This was so much worse than I thought. They hadn't just been living off me. They had been stealing from an elderly woman, their own mother and grandmother. Uncle Robert needed to know about this. I called him immediately and told him everything. He was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Abel, this is a serious crime. Your grandmother could press charges. They could go to jail. She doesn't want to destroy the family. She might not have a choice. This kind of abuse, it needs to be reported. At minimum, she needs to protect herself. Tomorrow, when you visit her, bring her to my office. We need to get her a power of attorney set up, someone she trusts to actually manage her finances. And we need to document everything. Okay, I said, feeling overwhelmed. Okay, and Abel? This changes things. If they're willing to steal from their own mother, there's no telling what else they might do. You need to be very careful. Watch your back. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. I kept thinking about my father's face when he grabbed my arm at my office, the cold anger in his eyes, the threatening messages from Craig, my mother's manipulative tears, Sarah's public smear campaign, Jake's rage. These people were my family, but I didn't recognize them anymore. Or maybe I was finally seeing them clearly for the first time. Either way, I knew Robert was right. This was only going to get worse. The next morning I picked up my grandmother from the assisted living facility. She looked smaller somehow, frailer, her hands shaking as I helped her into my car. We drove to Uncle Robert's office in silence, her staring out the window, lost in thought. Robert's office was warm and comfortable, designed to put clients at ease. He greeted my grandmother with a gentle hug and settled her into a leather chair. For the next hour, he walked her through setting up a power of attorney, designating me as her legal representative for financial matters. She signed the paperwork with a shaky hand, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I never thought I'd have to do this," she said quietly. "Protect myself from my own daughter." "I know, Mrs. Patterson," Robert said gently. "But this is the right thing to do. Now Abel can help make sure you're taken care of properly." With the power of attorney established, Robert requested access to all of my grandmother's financial accounts. What we discovered over the next week was worse than we imagined. The Social Security theft had been going on for 3 years, exactly as my grandmother suspected. $600 a month, $7,200 a year, totaling $21,600. The money had been transferred into my parents' personal checking account automatically each month. The statements showed it being spent on everyday expenses: groceries, gas, utilities, entertainment. The credit card in my grandmother's name was worse. It had been opened 4 years ago, shortly after my grandmother moved into assisted living. The initial charges were small, easy to miss. But over time, they escalated. Purchases at department stores, expensive dinners, a weekend trip to a resort in Wisconsin, new furniture, electronics. The card was maxed at $12,000. My grandmother had never seen a single statement. They had been sent to my parents' address. Robert pulled the detailed transaction records. Many of the charges were at stores near Sarah and Craig's house. Restaurant charges matched dates when they had posted photos on social media of nice dinners. One large charge at an electronics store coincided with Craig buying a new gaming computer setup that I had seen in their living room. They had been using my grandmother's credit, her name, her social security number, to fund their lifestyle. And they had been doing it while I paid for everything else. "This is textbook elder financial abuse," Robert said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "In Illinois, this is a Class 3 felony if the amount exceeds $5,000. Combined with the Social Security theft, we're looking at over $33,000. They could face serious prison time." My grandmother closed her eyes. "I don't want to send my daughter to prison." "I understand," Robert said. "But we need to at least file a police report to protect you, and there needs to be consequences." While we were navigating the grandmother's financial disaster, my own life was unraveling in a different way. 3 days after visiting Robert's office, I received a letter at work. It was addressed to my boss and HR, sent anonymously but clearly from someone who knew details about me. The letter claimed I was embezzling funds from the company. It alleged that I had been manipulating client accounts, skimming small amounts, and hiding the theft through falsified reports. The accusations were specific enough to sound credible, but vague enough to be hard to immediately disprove. My boss called me into his office, the letter on his desk. "Abel, I don't believe this for a second, but HR requires that we investigate any formal accusation of financial misconduct." "I understand," I said, my stomach churning. "I'll cooperate fully with whatever you need." The investigation took a week. I was placed on administrative leave, which meant I sat at home while forensic accountants went through every transaction I had ever touched at the company. Every client account, every report, every piece of data. It was humiliating, even though I knew they would find nothing because there was nothing to find. My coworkers didn't know why I was suddenly absent. Rumors started. I could see the speculation on social media, the careful questions from acquaintances. My reputation, both professionally and personally, was being systematically destroyed. Robert traced the letter. It had been sent from a public computer at a library near Sarah and Craig's house. The library's security footage showed a man matching Craig's description using that computer on the day the letter was sent. It wasn't definitive proof, but it was close enough. "This is harassment," Robert said. "This is a coordinated campaign to destroy you. We need to act." He drafted a formal cease and desist letter addressed to my mother, father, Sarah, Craig, and Jake. The letter was detailed and legally precise. It demanded no further contact with me, no defamatory statements, no harassment at my workplace, and no further financial demands. It outlined the evidence we had of elder financial abuse. It threatened legal action for defamation and harassment if the behavior continued, and it gave them 10 days to respond. The letters were sent via certified mail, requiring signatures. We received confirmation that all 5 were delivered and signed for. The company's investigation cleared me completely. The forensic accountants found my records to be immaculate, every transaction properly documented and accounted for. My boss called me into his office, apologized for the week of stress, and reinstated me immediately with back pay for the time I was on leave. "We traced the letter as far as we could," he said. "The company's legal team is prepared to pursue charges for attempted defamation if you want to provide them with the information you have." "Let me think about it," I said. I was exhausted, emotionally drained from the constant attacks. 3 days after the cease and desist letters were delivered, I got a call from Aunt Linda. Her voice was urgent. "Abel, your father is in the hospital. He had a heart attack this morning. It's serious. He's in the ICU." My first thought was relief, that I hadn't caused it by stress, that the cease and desist letter hadn't triggered a medical emergency. My second thought was guilt for feeling relief. My third thought was suspicion. Is he really sick? Or is this another manipulation? "It's real, honey. I'm at the hospital now. Your mother called me. He's stable but weak. They're running tests." Linda paused. "Your mother asked me to tell you. She said, he's asking for you." I drove to the hospital, my hands tight on the steering wheel. I didn't know what I would find. Part of me expected it to be a trap, a setup for another confrontation. But when I arrived and Linda met me in the lobby, I could see from her face that it was legitimate. "He's in room 417. "But Abel, you should know that everyone is here. Your whole family." "Of course they are," I muttered. I took the elevator up, Linda beside me. When we reached the ICU floor, I saw them immediately. My mother, Sarah, Craig, Jake, all sitting in the waiting area. They looked up when I approached. "Abel," my mother said, standing. Her eyes were red, her face puffy. "Thank God you came. How is he?" "Stable. The doctors say he'll be okay, but it was close. A major blockage. They put in a stent." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Abel, can we talk? Please?" "Not here," I said. "Is he awake? Can I see him?" The nurse said only 2 visitors at a time, and I've been in there. "But you can go. He's been asking for you." I went in alone, leaving them in the waiting room. My father looked old in the hospital bed, smaller than I remembered, hooked up to monitors and IVs. His eyes were closed. I stood at the doorway, unsure if I should enter or leave. His eyes opened. "Abel." "Yeah, Dad. I'm here." I stepped closer but didn't sit down. "They told me you got the letter. The cease and desist." His voice was weak, raspy. "I did. Your mother is terrified. She thinks you're going to press charges." "Maybe I should," I said quietly. "What you all did to Grandma, that's criminal." We were desperate. He closed his eyes again. Everything was falling apart. We didn't know what else to do. "You could have been honest. You could have asked for help instead of stealing and lying and trying to destroy me. We're family, Abel. Family doesn't give up on each other." "You gave up on me first," I said. "You sent that text. You agreed I wasn't part of the family anymore. You don't get to use the family card now." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm sorry. For all of it. For taking you for granted. For not seeing what you were doing for us. For the text. Your mother was so angry that night, and I just went along with it. I shouldn't have. It was the closest thing to a real apology I had ever gotten from him. But it felt hollow, timed perfectly to when he was weak and vulnerable. I wondered if he would feel the same way once he recovered. "I need to go," I said. "I'm glad you're okay, but I can't do this right now." I left the room and headed for the elevator. My family tried to follow me, calling my name, but I kept walking. I made it to the parking garage before Craig caught up with me. "Hey," he said, slightly out of breath. "We need to talk." "No, we don't." "You think you've won? You think sending lawyer letters and threatening us makes you tough?" He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You're pathetic, Abel. You've always been pathetic. The little golden boy who thinks he's better than everyone else because he makes good money. Get away from me, Craig." "Or what? You'll call your lawyer? You'll call the cops?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think you can just walk away from family? You think there won't be consequences? We know where you live. We know where you work. You should be very careful, Abel. Accidents happen." The threat was clear. I pulled out my phone and hit record on the voice memo app. "Say that again." Craig's eyes narrowed. He realized his mistake. "Forget it. But watch your back." He turned and walked away, back toward the hospital entrance. I stood there shaking, the phone still recording. I had it. A clear threat, in his own words. I sent the file to Uncle Robert immediately with a text. "We need to talk. Now." The next week felt like living in a nightmare that kept finding new ways to get worse. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, jumping at sounds, sleeping poorly despite my exhaustion. The first incident happened 3 days after the hospital confrontation. I came out of my apartment building in the morning to find all 4 of my tires slashed. Clean cuts, clearly deliberate. My car sat on its rims in the parking garage, undrivable. The building's security cameras had conveniently been offline for maintenance the night before. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. I filed a police report. The officer who took my statement was sympathetic but honest. Without camera footage or witnesses, there was little they could do. I gave them Craig's name, explained the ongoing family situation, but without proof, it was just suspicion. The tires cost $800 to replace. I added the expense to the running list of damages Robert was keeping for potential legal action. The anonymous threatening texts started 2 days later. A burner number, untraceable. The messages were vague enough to avoid being explicitly illegal but clear enough to be frightening. "You should watch where you walk at night. Careful on those stairs. Wouldn't want you to fall. Your apartment is on the 3rd floor, right? Hope the balcony railing is sturdy." I showed them to Robert. He advised documenting everything but admitted that burner phone threats were nearly impossible to prosecute unless they became more explicit. Then came the CPS report. A call to Child Protective Services claiming I was abusing a child. I don't have children. I've never had children. But someone had filed a report claiming I had a 6-year-old daughter living with me who showed signs of physical abuse. A CPS investigator showed up at my apartment. I had to explain that I lived alone, had no children, and that this was clearly a false report filed as harassment. The investigator was professional but had to complete the investigation anyway. I had to provide documentation proving I had no dependents, no custody arrangements, nothing. The investigator apologized for the inconvenience, but said false reports were taken seriously. "Can you tell me who filed the report?" I asked. The report was anonymous, which is allowed for child safety concerns. But given that there's clearly no child here, we'll be flagging this as a malicious false report. If it happens again, we can pursue charges against whoever is filing. Another incident documented. Another piece of evidence added to the pile. The online review appeared on a public consumer complaints website. Someone claiming to be a former client had posted a detailed story about how I had provided terrible financial advice that lost them their entire retirement savings. The review named me personally, included my photo scraped from social media, and painted me as incompetent and possibly fraudulent. The review was entirely fictional. I don't provide personal financial advising to the public, only institutional analysis for my company. But the review was public, searchable, and attached to my name. Anyone Googling me would find it. My company's legal team sent a takedown request to the website. The review was eventually removed, but not before it had been up for 5 days and captured in Internet archives. The attempted break-in happened on a Thursday night. I was home, watching television with the volume low, because I had been on edge all week. Around 10:30, I heard someone trying my door handle. Quiet, careful jiggling, testing if it was locked. I grabbed my phone and called 911, whispering my address and the situation. The dispatcher kept me on the line while sending officers. I heard voices in the hallway, low and urgent, then footsteps running away. The police arrived 6 minutes later. They found no one in the building, but the door showed signs of attempted forced entry, scratches around the lock. The building manager pulled security footage. It showed 2 figures in hoodies, faces obscured, approaching my door. One appeared to be male, medium build. The other was harder to identify. They had jimmied the exterior door to get into the building, bypassed the supposedly secure entry. "Do you have any idea who might want to break into your apartment?" the officer asked. I explained the situation with my family, the escalating harassment. The officer took notes and suggested I file for a restraining order. "We'll increase patrols in this area," he said, "and I'd recommend installing additional security measures. Cameras inside your apartment, a better lock, maybe a door brace." I spent the next day installing security cameras in my apartment, upgrading my door lock to a high-security deadbolt, and buying a door brace that would prevent forced entry even if someone got past the lock. My home, which had always felt like a sanctuary, now felt like a fortress under siege. I barely slept anymore. Every creak, every sound in the hallway sent my heart racing. I was exhausted, jumpy, constantly anxious. Work suffered. I was making small mistakes, forgetting details, struggling to concentrate. My boss noticed and pulled me aside. "Abel, I think you should consider taking some time off. Maybe a few weeks. This situation with your family, it's clearly affecting you. We can manage without you for a bit. Take care of yourself." I wanted to argue, to insist I was fine, but I wasn't fine. I was falling apart. Uncle Robert called me that afternoon with new information. Jake had borrowed his laptop to Craig for an afternoon, and Jake, apparently growing a conscience, had looked at the browsing history before returning it. What he found had disturbed him enough to tell our cousin, who told Linda, who told Robert. Craig had been researching how to file false police reports, how to get someone arrested, how to make accusations stick, how to make someone lose their job. The search history was extensive, methodical, showing someone planning a campaign of destruction. "This is evidence of conspiracy to harass," Robert said. "Combined with the threats he made to you on recording, the attempted break-in, the false reports, we have a pattern. Abel, you need to file for a restraining order against Craig at minimum, and we should seriously consider pressing charges for everything." "What about my parents? My siblings?" "Your parents are vulnerable right now because of the elder abuse situation with your grandmother. Craig is the real threat here. He's the one actively trying to destroy you." I sat in my apartment that evening, surrounded by security equipment, exhausted beyond measure, and realized Linda had been right weeks ago. It was going to get worse before it got better. And I was at my breaking point. My grandmother called me that night. "Abel, honey, I've made a decision. I want to press charges. What they did to me was wrong, and I can't protect them from consequences anymore. Not when they're trying to hurt you this badly." "Are you sure, Grandma?" "I'm sure. I've lived a long life, Abel. I've learned that sometimes love means holding people accountable, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. They need to face what they've done." The next morning, Robert and I went with my grandmother to the police station. She filed a formal complaint for financial elder abuse against my mother and Craig. The detective who took the report was sympathetic and thorough. With Robert's documentation, bank records, credit card statements, and my grandmother's testimony, the case was strong. We'll open an investigation, the detective said. Given the amount involved and the vulnerable victim status, this will be taken seriously. If the evidence supports the complaint, the state's attorney's office will likely pursue charges. We left the police station, and I felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. There was no going back now. This was going to tear the family apart completely. That afternoon, I prepared to file for a restraining order against Craig. Robert had prepared all the paperwork. The recorded threat, the evidence of researching how to harm me, the pattern of harassment, the attempted break-in, the false reports. The hearing was scheduled for the following week, but I never made it to the hearing. That evening, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mr. Abel Patterson?" A woman's voice. Professional. "Yes? This is Angela Torres from Channel 7 News. I'm calling because we received an anonymous tip about a story involving you and your family. The tip claims you're a millionaire who has abandoned your disabled parents and refuses to help them while they face homelessness. I wanted to reach out for comment before we run the story." My blood went cold. That's completely false. The source provided us with documentation, photos of foreclosure notices, medical bills, eviction notices. They painted a picture of a family in crisis, while you refused to help despite having significant wealth. I'm not a millionaire, and there's a lot more to this story than what your source told you. I'd like to hear your side. Would you be willing to sit down for an interview? I thought fast. If they were going to run a story, I needed to control the narrative. Yes, but I have documentation too. A lot of documentation. And I want to make sure the full story is told. I'm interested in the truth, Mr. Patterson. That's all. We scheduled an interview for the next day. I called Robert immediately after hanging up. They're taking this public, I said. They're trying to destroy me through the media now. Then we go public too, Robert said. But we do it right. We tell your story, with evidence, before they can twist it. I have a friend who's a journalist at the Tribune, more reputable than local news. Let me call her. We can do this, Abel. But we need to move fast. That night, I barely slept. Tomorrow, my private nightmare was about to become public knowledge. I would have to expose my family's abuse, my grandmother's exploitation, all of it, to protect myself. I had been backed into a corner with no choice but to fight back with everything I had. And I was terrified of what would happen next. The interview with the Tribune journalist, a woman named Patricia Hayes, took place in Uncle Robert's office. I brought everything. Bank statements showing 5 years of payments. The disownment text from my mother with Sarah's like visible. Screenshots of the harassment. Documentation of my grandmother's stolen funds. The recorded threat from Craig. Police reports from the tire slashing and attempted break-in, and the fake CPS report. Patricia was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and professional. She listened without interrupting as I walked her through the entire timeline. Robert sat beside me, occasionally clarifying legal points. The interview took 3 hours. "This is extensive," Patricia said when I finished. "And you have documentation for all of it?" "Every word," I said. "I'm not making any of this up. I can prove everything. I believe you." She closed her notebook. "I'll need to verify some of this independently. Contact the police for confirmation of reports. Maybe reach out to your grandmother with her permission. But if everything checks out the way I think it will, this is a significant story. Financial elder abuse, family exploitation, harassment. It's more than just a family squabble." "When would you publish?" Robert asked. "I need 2 days to verify and write. So probably this weekend. Saturday edition." She looked at me. "Mr. Patterson, I want you to understand that once this is public, there's no taking it back. Your family will be exposed. There will be consequences for them. They've been trying to destroy me for weeks," I said quietly. "I'm just defending myself." The article was published Saturday morning, front page of the regional section. The headline read, "Local Family's Financial Abuse Hides Behind Accusations of Abandonment." The article was thorough, balanced, and damning. Patricia had included quotes from the police reports, confirmation from the detective handling my grandmother's case, and excerpts from the documentation I had provided. She had also tried to contact my parents for comment. They had declined. By noon, the article was trending on local social media. By evening, it had been picked up by several national news aggregators. People were sharing it with comments ranging from sympathy for me to outrage at my family's behavior. The story resonated with people who had experienced similar family exploitation. The local news station that had originally contacted me pivoted their story completely. Instead of the hit piece my family had tried to plant, they ran a segment about financial elder abuse and family manipulation, using my story as an example without naming me directly. My phone exploded with messages. Friends I hadn't heard from in years reaching out with support. Coworkers sending encouragement. Strangers on social media sharing their own stories of family financial abuse. The overwhelming response was supportive. But my family's response was catastrophic. Sarah deleted all her social media accounts within hours of the article publishing. Her carefully crafted narrative had been completely destroyed by documented evidence. The people who had supported her in the comments were now criticizing her, some apologizing to me directly. Craig was facing a criminal investigation for elder abuse. The article had put public pressure on the state's attorney's office to act. A spokesperson confirmed they were reviewing evidence and expected to file charges within the week. My parents' phone started ringing constantly, according to Aunt Linda, who lived nearby. Neighbors, former friends, people from their church, all calling with questions or cutting off contact. They had been publicly humiliated in the community they had lived in for 30 years. Jake sent me a text message Sunday morning. It was short. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm sorry." My mother sent me an email, not apologizing but begging me to make this go away, to retract the article somehow, to fix what I had broken. She didn't seem to understand that I couldn't retract documented truth, and that I hadn't broken anything. They had. My father sent nothing. His silence was somehow worse than my mother's desperate pleading. Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from an unexpected person, Natalie Brooks. We had dated in high school, been close for 2 years, then drifted apart when I went to college. I hadn't spoken to her in 10 years. "Abel, hi. I don't know if you remember me." "Of course I remember you, Natalie." I sat down on my couch, surprised. "How are you?" "I'm good. I'm a therapist now, actually. I specialize in family trauma and abuse." She paused. "I saw the article about your family, and I wanted to reach out because, honestly, a lot of things from when we were dating suddenly make sense now." "What do you mean?" "You were always stressed about money. Always working extra hours. Always worried. I thought it was just because you were ambitious, but now I realize you were probably already supporting them even back then, weren't you?" I thought back. She was right. Even at 22, fresh out of college, I had been sending money home. "Yeah, I was. I'm so sorry you went through this, and I'm sorry I didn't see it then." Her voice was warm, genuine. "I wanted you to know that what you did, setting boundaries and protecting yourself, that took incredible strength. A lot of people never escape that kind of family dynamic." We talked for an hour. She told me about her work, about how common financial exploitation within families actually was. I told her about the therapy I had started, about trying to process years of being conditioned to be the family caretaker. She offered professional insight but mostly just listened, the way she had always been good at. "Would you want to get coffee sometime?" she asked before we hung up. "Just to catch up. No pressure." "I'd like that," I said, and meant it. We met for coffee Thursday evening. It was easy, comfortable, like no time had passed. She was smart and kind, and made me laugh for the first time in weeks. We talked about everything except my family drama, which was a relief. When we parted ways, she hugged me and said, "You're going to be okay, Abel. I can tell." Friday afternoon, Uncle Robert called with an update. The state's attorney filed charges today. Craig is being charged with 2 counts of financial exploitation of an elderly person and 1 count of identity theft for the credit card. Your mother is being offered a plea deal: probation, restitution, and testimony against Craig. If she takes it, she avoids jail time. Will she take it? I think so. The alternative is going to trial and potentially facing years in prison. She'd be foolish not to take the deal. What about my dad? He wasn't directly involved in the theft from your grandmother, so he's not being charged. But the civil restitution will affect both your parents, since they're married and shared the stolen money. The legal machinery was moving forward. With or without my family's cooperation, justice, in some form, was happening. But the biggest shock came Sunday evening, a week after the article published. I was at home, watching television with Natalie, who had come over for dinner. We were taking things slow, tentatively rebuilding a connection that had been dormant for a decade. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender was my father. The subject line: "I'm sorry." I opened it, my heart pounding. The email was long, several paragraphs. For the first time in my life, my father was being honest. He admitted to the exploitation, to taking my support for granted, to allowing my mother to manipulate the situation, to failing me as a father. He acknowledged that the disownment text was cruel and wrong. He took responsibility for creating a family dynamic where I was valued only for what I could provide, not for who I was. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't ask me to drop charges, to reconcile, to forgive. He just apologized and said he understood if I never wanted contact again. He said he was in cardiac rehabilitation, attending therapy sessions, and trying to figure out how he had become the kind of man who would treat his son this way. The email ended with, "You deserved better than what we gave you. You deserve to be loved for yourself, not for your paycheck. I failed you, and I'm sorry. I hope you find the happiness you deserve." I read it 3 times. Natalie, seeing my expression, asked if I was okay. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I think my father just gave me a real apology for the first time in my life." "How does that feel?" "Confusing. Sad. A little bit like closure, maybe." I didn't respond to the email that night. Maybe I would eventually, maybe I wouldn't. But it was a start, a tiny crack in the wall of hurt and anger I had built. 2 weeks later, my mother took the plea deal. She would testify against Craig, pay restitution to my grandmother, serve 5 years probation, and attend mandatory counseling. Craig was fighting the charges, but facing overwhelming evidence. His trial date was set for 6 months out. Sarah filed for divorce from Craig. She moved back in with my parents, quiet and withdrawn according to Aunt Linda. She never reached out to me directly, but Linda said she was in therapy and seemed genuinely remorseful, even if she couldn't articulate it yet. The restraining order against Craig was granted. He was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my workplace, and my home. Violation would result in immediate arrest. Life began to feel stable for the first time in months. I was sleeping better. Work was going well. My relationship with Natalie was deepening into something real and healthy. My grandmother was safe, her finances protected, living in a better facility with care she deserved. I had lost my family of origin, but I was building something new, something based on mutual respect and genuine love, rather than obligation and exploitation. 3 months after the article published, I sat in the courtroom for Craig's plea hearing. He had finally taken a deal, rather than risk trial. 5 years in prison, restitution, and a permanent felony record. Sarah sat in the back of the courtroom, her face pale and drawn. We didn't make eye contact. My grandmother, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand when the judge accepted the plea. "Justice," she whispered. The criminal case was over. The civil restitution was ongoing, with payments being arranged to repay my grandmother. She would never get back everything that was stolen, but she would get approximately half over time. It was something. I had quietly set up a trust fund for her, managed by Uncle Robert, ensuring she would be comfortable for the rest of her life regardless of what restitution she received. She cried when I told her, saying I had already done too much. But this wasn't obligation. This was love. 6 months after everything started, I moved into a small house I bought in a quiet neighborhood 40 minutes from my old apartment. 2 bedrooms, a fenced yard, and most importantly, distance from the memories. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a 3-year-old mixed breed named Charlie, who had also been abandoned by his previous family. We were good for each other. Natalie helped me move in, along with Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, and a few close friends from work. We ordered pizza, laughed over assembling furniture, and christened the house with a sense of new beginnings. That evening, after everyone left, Natalie and I sat on the back porch watching Charlie explore his new yard. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her hand in mine. "Good," I said, and realized I meant it. Really good, actually. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm living my own life. You are. And you're doing it well. We had been officially dating for 4 months, taking it slow but steady. She understood my baggage, my need for boundaries, my caution about being used. She was patient and kind, and never asked for more than I could give. With her, I was learning what a healthy relationship looked like. My therapy sessions were helping me untangle years of conditioning. I was learning to recognize manipulation, to set boundaries without guilt, to prioritize my own needs without feeling selfish. It was hard work, uncomfortable work, but necessary work. Jake reached out again, more substantively this time. He had dropped out of school, gotten a full-time job in construction, and was slowly paying his own way through community college. He sent me occasional updates, not asking for anything, just keeping me informed. I appreciated the effort, but kept him at arm's length. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild. My father and I exchanged a few emails over those months. Short, careful conversations. He told me about his therapy, about realizing how much of his identity had been wrapped up in being a provider, and how losing that role in retirement had made him resentful and bitter. He was working through it. I told him I appreciated his honesty, but wasn't ready for more than occasional contact. He accepted that. My mother never apologized, not really. She completed her probation requirements, but her messages to me through Linda always contained an undercurrent of victimhood, of not quite understanding what she had done wrong. I grieved for the mother I wished I had, and accepted the one I actually did. Distance was easier than constant disappointment. Sarah remained silent. Linda said she was struggling, working a retail job, living with our parents, trying to figure out who she was outside of being Craig's wife or the family's baby. I felt a complicated mix of sympathy and wariness toward her. Maybe someday we would talk, maybe not. I was okay with either outcome. My grandmother moved to a newer assisted living facility closer to my new house. I visited her every Sunday, sometimes with Natalie, sometimes alone. We would sit in the facility's garden, and she would tell me stories about her own life, about her own struggles with family and boundaries. She became not just my grandmother, but my friend, a source of wisdom and unconditional love. "You know what I'm most proud of?" she said one Sunday afternoon. "Not that you gave us money for all those years, although that was generous. I'm proud that you knew when to stop. That takes a different kind of strength." I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching financial literacy classes to young adults. Budgeting, saving, understanding credit, recognizing financial manipulation. I wanted to help others avoid the pitfalls I had fallen into. The work was fulfilling in a way my corporate job never had been. Natalie and I grew closer. She met Charlie and declared him the perfect dog. She helped me plant a small vegetable garden in my backyard. She introduced me to her friends, who became my friends. She built with me the kind of support network I had never had before, based on mutual care rather than obligation. One evening, 8 months after the disownment text, I sat on my porch with Charlie at my feet and Natalie beside me. My grandmother was inside making dinner, insisting on cooking despite my protests. Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda were coming over later for a casual Sunday meal. This was my family now. Small, intentional, built on respect and genuine love. I thought about the text message that had started everything. "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family." At the time, it had felt like the worst thing that could happen. But sitting here, In my own home, surrounded by people who actually valued me, I realized it had been a gift. That text had freed me to stop chasing approval I would never receive, freed me to stop sacrificing myself for people who saw me as an ATM rather than a son, freed me to build a life I actually wanted rather than the life I thought I was obligated to live. I learned that family isn't defined by blood or obligation. Real family doesn't exploit your kindness or weaponize your love. Real family doesn't disown you and then demand money. Real family sees you, values you, supports you. I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's survival. It's self-respect. It's recognizing that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. I learned that you can't save people who are determined to destroy themselves, and you shouldn't sacrifice yourself trying. Some people will only see you as a resource, never as a person. And when you realize that, the most loving thing you can do is walk away. I learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is loving yourself enough to say no, to walk away, to choose peace over obligation. The hardest lesson was accepting that the family I was born into wasn't capable of giving me what I needed. But in accepting that, I found the freedom to create the family I chose. Natalie, who understood my past and loved me anyway. Linda and Robert, who stood by me when no one else did. My grandmother, who showed me what unconditional love actually looked like. My friends, who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. I found peace not in revenge, but in building a life where I was valued, where I was enough, just as I was, where giving was mutual, not one-sided, where love didn't come with invisible price tags. The text that disowned me was meant to hurt me, to control me, to force me back into line. Instead, it freed me to become the person I was meant to be. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing. Sometimes rejection is redirection. Sometimes losing your family of origin allows you to find your family of choice. I still carry the scars. I still sometimes struggle with guilt, with wondering if I should have tried harder, done more, been better. But therapy is helping me recognize those thoughts for what they are. Echoes of old programming, not truth. The truth is simpler. I deserved better than what they gave me. I deserved to be loved for myself, not for my paycheck. And when I finally recognized that, when I finally chose myself, everything changed. Natalie called from inside the house. "Abel, dinner's ready. Your grandmother made that pot roast you love." I stood up, Charlie following me, and walked inside to a table full of people who actually loved me, who saw me, who valued me. This was home. This was family. This was everything I had needed all along, and I was finally, truly, free. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family obligation and your own well-being? How did you handle it? What would you do if you received a message like the one I got? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and reach others who might need to hear this message. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges, setting boundaries, and finding your own path. Your support means everything. Consider sharing this story with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes people feel alone in their struggles with family, and knowing others have faced similar challenges can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here, for engaging, for sharing your own experiences. I hope you find the courage to choose yourself when you need to set boundaries that protect your peace, and to build the life you deserve. Take care of yourselves out there. Remember that your worth isn't measured by what you provide to others, but by who you are. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see that. Until next time, I wish you peace, healing, and the strength to choose yourself.